Motutapu, we're trying to create an environment where it's like it was a few hundred years ago.
It's a half an hour's ferry ride from downtown Auckland. It's a very large island.
We're going to have trees, plants, birds, and we want it to be like a piece of New Zealand from the past.
So the contribution it can make to looking after our endangered wildlife is huge.
Well, weeds are obviously not part of New Zealand's history. They've come in from all over the world.
They have the capability of outcompeting our native trees.
We don't want them in our ecosystem, and the weeds just interfere with it.
So weeds are a very important thing to be getting rid of. The worst weeds are probably moth plant and rhamnus, because they're such vigorous growers.
Moth plant is bad. It's a climbing vine, and it can clamber all over our new plantings and smother the small trees until they basically give up and die. It can also climb right up into big trees, and it forms a dense, dark mass.
So one mature plant can have up to 50 moth pods on it. One pod can have up to 500 seeds in it. It's evil.
Rhamnus, on the other hand, is something that fills in under the big trees, especially on the coast.
And they really do outcompete.
And of course, no native plants means that you're going to get less native birds, less native insects, and so on. We keep track of weeds using a GIS system. So I can use my phone, and I have a map on it. I can go into the bush, I can find a big weed infestation, and I can plot that point so that next year I can go back to exactly the same point and deal with that infestation should it have produced lots of babies.
We need to deal with these weeds on Motutapu.
Motutapu sits in the Gulf amidst many other lovely islands
that are pest-free and also have trusts that are looking after the environment.
So if we just let our weeds grow rampantly, we'll be exporting them over to those other islands. They get transported by wind, birds and the sea.
Foundation North money is going to be a game changer for us.
Because as our planting area gets larger, we have more and more areas that we need volunteers to weed in.
And at the same time as we can use contractors to look after and control the invasive weeds in other areas.
So the contractors will go in and get rid of the really bad infestations. And then hopefully in future years to come, volunteers will be able to go back in and clean them up.
Over the last 20 years, we've planted about 100 hectares of native forest. And all of that has been done by volunteers. Volunteers have collected the seed, propagated the plants in the nursery at the other end of the island, and they've planted them out in the field. And most importantly, volunteers have maintained these areas of planting from invasive exotic weeds.
And they also take that experience back to the mainland. So I think that what we generate on Motutapu is an awareness of the beautiful environment that can exist in New Zealand.